and welcome to the Michigan League of Conservation Voters' 9th Annual Equity in the Environment Awards Gala. We're so happy that you be with us here tonight to recognize some outstanding individuals who are working tirelessly to clean up our water, make sure we have safe air to breathe, shut down a dangerous oil pipeline, tackle climate change, defend our democracy, and so much more. My name is Ann DeLisi, and I'll be your host tonight for this wonderful event. I'm from WDET, and career there back in the 80s and went to a bunch of radio stations around Detroit, and I'm happy to be back at Detroit's public radio station yet again. Many of us have had to adapt to Zoom over the last couple of years. You'd think we'd get used to it by now. It never quite feels the same. And we find new ways to connect with each other, thankfully. I know the Michigan Mlcv team has worked very hard to make this event, which is always spectacular in person, as engaging and compelling as possible tonight. So let's start up by saying hi in the chat. We would love to hear from you, so you can chat with us during the evening. And we'd love to know where you're tuning in from, and just tell us who you are. So we're gonna kind of connect with you during the evening way. We have an incredible lineup of speakers for tonight's event and top-notch awardees who are leading the charge, not only in Michigan, but nationally. They are individuals who have truly their lives to protecting human health, our environment, and our democracy as well. Since we can't be together in person, I want you to feel free to type in the chat, as we mentioned. Michigan Mlcv staff and the awardees can see your messages, so if you are so inclined, show them some love tonight. We have also dropped a link in the chat to tonight's program where you can read more about all of our incredible sponsors, our speakers, and our honorees. This certainly takes a village to make something like this happen. And we, again, are grateful that you could join us tonight. Now I'd like to hand it over to Michigan Mlcv Executive Director, Lisa Wozniak, to kick off our program for the evening. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, Anne. Hello, everybody. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us for the Michigan League of Conservation Voters' 9th Annual Equity in the Environment Awards Gala. My name is Lisa Wozniak, and I have the distinct privilege and honor of serving as the Executive Director for this great organization, the Michigan League of Conservation Voters, and it's a family of organizations. As Anne noted, for close to a decade now, we've hosted this annual event to recognize the fearless advocates who are working on the front lines to protect our air, land, and water, our health, our democracy. And this is a night of true celebration. And it's a night of true celebration in the midst of some terribly challenging times. We're still in the midst of a global pandemic that has taken the lives of thousands of Michiganders, our friends, our neighbors, our family members. We're racing the clock to take bold action to address the climate crisis. People all over this nation are being poisoned by toxins in their water, like lead and PFAS. And our voting rights and our election systems are under direct attack. In the midst of all of this, there is a drumbeat of determination. It can be found in small towns and in big cities. It's a drumbeat that's created by people who keep pushing our state and our nation forward in terms of equity and justice, public health, and the integrity of our democracy. We intended to hold this annual event, this great Detroit Awards Gala, in person this year, despite the challenges we face, and because of the challenges we face, especially on the voting rights side and our clean water. The event is always so festive and so energizing for everybody who gets involved. But we made the tough decision, and it was the right decision, to hold the gala virtually for the second year in a row. And it's my greatest hope that next year we'll all be able to be together and we'll be able to raise our glasses to our awardees together. We talk a lot about protecting our air, land, and water. And I want to take a moment tonight to specifically talk about our land. I'd like to acknowledge that the land that we all live on, it was first inhabited by indigenous peoples. For me, in Ypsilanti, Michigan, where I sit tonight, I'd like to acknowledge that the Odawa, Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Wyandot tribes lived on this land hundreds of years before the city was founded. And I want to recognize the injustices, the dislocation, the disenfranchisement of the indigenous peoples who were first here. The voices of the indigenous and tribal communities are so incredibly important every day and always. And it's critical that we recognize the ongoing work that so many tribal leaders are doing in the here and now to protect our air, our land, our water from corporate polluters and fighting to shut down things like Enbridge Energy's dangerous and damaged Line 5 pipeline. As all of you know, Michigan LCV is, I think all of you know, is the leading nonpartisan political voice working to protect our air, land, and water and our public health here in the state of Michigan. And we are standing strong in partnership with so many to protect our voting rights and our election systems. We're set up as a family of organizations that works to do three very important things. We work to educate our elected officials, the media, and the public. We work to elect those to office who will truly prioritize protections of people and planet. And once elected, we hold these elected officials accountable for their actions. Over the past many years, our work has become increasingly important. We live in a moment of great challenges to our state, from contaminated drinking water, a damaged pipeline in the Great Lakes, extreme weather and flooding, and unprecedented attacks on our democracy. I'm very proud to say that despite these challenges, and perhaps because of these challenges, the Michigan LCV team has stepped up to do more and to do better. We've done so with an ongoing and bold vision, firmly based in strategy, determination, and hope. Thanks to the tireless work of this awesome team, we played a key role in helping to elect President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, who have demonstrated strong and steadfast leadership in tackling the climate change crisis, transitioning our country to affordable and renewable energy, and ensuring clean, safe, and affordable drinking water for everyone in this nation. We helped elect Michigan Supreme Court justices here in Michigan, including our very own Michigan LCV board member, Elizabeth Welch. These justices are true champions and defenders of our democracy. And thanks in large part to the work of this team and all of you, we have 3 tenacious women serving in our state's highest offices as Secretary of State, Attorney General, and Governor. The work of these brave and determined women is just getting started, and we are very clear that they all need to be reelected next year to finish the very, very important work that they've just started in their first terms. In 2021, the Michigan LCV board and staff developed a new 4-year strategic plan. And within that plan, we articulated a 20-year vision, a look to the future and where we want to be at the end of that 20 years. We intend to reverse the legacy of toxic pollution, which has had devastating impacts on human health and our climate, so that we can provide every Michigander access to the cleanest air and land and the safest and most affordable water in the nation. We aim to do this by codifying permanent protections for Michigan's air, land, and water, and establishing an unassailable political and cultural consensus on the importance of clean air, land, and water, and the right to vote. And we intend to get there, leaning in and embracing every single day the core values that underpin our work: people-centered power, innovation, inclusivity, and justice. If we've learned anything over these past many years, it's that values transcend differences. They transcend political parties. They are the heartbeat of our work and our organization. Since the adoption of this new plan earlier this year, and even before that, frankly, we've been playing a pivotal role here in Michigan to support and pass both the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill and President Biden's Build Back Better agenda, the most significant and comprehensive plan to transition to clean, affordable energy and tackle climate change in our nation's history. We hit the doors and we talked to thousands of Michiganders about climate action, hearing their stories for why we need to build back better, including, and very importantly, the dire need to protect and make affordable, clean, safe drinking water for all. We launched the Build Back Better for Us campaign to collect stories from people all across the state about the impacts of climate change and call on leaders to take action by passing Build Back Better. On Monday, President Biden signed into law the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, a huge first step for our nation. And I have to tell you, I was really proud to be there at the White House on Monday to watch the president in action. Now it's time for the second step, and we are all hands on deck. I'd like to share a very short video with you that highlights some of the work that we've been doing over the summer in partnership with social justice, environmental, and labor organizations to urge our members of Congress to pass Build Back Better.
Why are we here today? We're here because we need to build back better.
We need the full Build Back Better plan.
What do we want? When do we want it?
No! We need to invest in the Build Back Better Act.
Let me hear you say, build,
Build Back Better! Build Back Better!
Build Back Better!
This bill just can do so much to help families.
We want to have a planet where there's breathable air. Let's get clean water out there. Please, clean energy jobs.
The strong climate justice, water and jobs provisions must not and will not be left behind.
We are worth the investment and we must build back better.
Please take action.
Build back better! 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 Build back better!
The Michigan LCV team has also been deeply involved in history in the making with Michigan's Independent Redistricting Commission, which is working to draw new maps to better represent Michigan voters. Our Democracy for All team tracked each and every meeting of this nascent committee, providing comment and breaking down the complicated process for our members. We also worked to engage the public, turning hundreds of residents out for hearings, helping them to make online comments and feel confident about participating in the process. And if all of that weren't enough, this year, we also worked hard to elect amazing individuals to office, like Dearborn Mayor-elect Abdullah Hammoud, the first Arab American Muslim mayor in Dearborn history. I'm delighted to say that we'll hear from Abdullah later in this program. So whom we elect matters, it really matters. And as we turn the corner into 2022, please know that this Michigan LCV team has rolled up our sleeves. Tonight, we are here to celebrate some amazing individuals who have demonstrated through their hard work a deep dedication to protecting our beautiful state and the people who live here. I'm incredibly grateful for their work, and I'm humbled by their presence with us this evening. They are the core of our program, a program that would not be possible without all of you. So thank you so very much for supporting our work and being here tonight. Thanks too to the many elected officials who are joining us this evening. I would typically, if we were in person, acknowledge all of you, but I can't see you, so I can't do that. I'd also like to thank the Michigan LCV and Michigan LCV Education Fund Boards of Directors. They are an outstanding group of people who, alongside the staff, are the heart and soul of this organization. I have special thanks to give tonight to the steering committee for this event, which includes Keith Cooley, Janice Bobrin, Phil Roos, Lisa Baker, Gary Bice, Bill Phillips, George Davis, and Bali Kumar. And my final thanks, I'd like to thank the Glass Academy for partnering with us to produce our beautiful awards tonight. I think you might see them as we talk to some of our awardees. I'd like to thank the Michigan LCV staff, notably Lauren Malice, Nick Dodge, Samantha Schubert, Abby Fisher, Reese Shasteen, Courtney Stanley, Kip Hamp, and Zach Simone for all the work they did to make this event a huge success. And I want to note that you'll be seeing, and you've already seen one, a number of videos tonight. These were not produced outside of this shop. They were all created and produced in-house by our talented team. I also want to thank our MC this evening, Ann DeLisi. Ann has been a central part of the Detroit media landscape for more than 35 years. I think many of you know she currently hosts Essential Music, a program dedicated to exploring the history of music, creating a platform for Detroit musicians, discovering new music and listening to what is next on the musical horizon. I recently discovered someone that I had never been introduced to before because of Ann's show, Black Bach, and had a chance to see him perform at the Cathedral Church of St. Paul in Detroit, and he was amazing, absolutely amazing. Anne, as an interviewer, has talked to everyone from David Bowie to White House photographer Pete Souza to Iggy Pop. Her curiosity and innovative spirit has led to the podcast series Essential Conversations, and her passion for food has resulted in Essential Cooking with her co-host, award-winning chef, James Regato. We are just so grateful, Anne, that you're here with us tonight, playing an essential, and I use that word playing playfully, essential role in our event, and for all that you do for the Southeast Michigan community in educating us and engaging us in music. And last but not least, I'd like to thank this evening's generous sponsors. This event, and indeed all our work, would not be possible without your support. Thanks to our sponsors and to all of you joining tonight and to thousands of others all across the state, Michigan LCV has grown significantly over the past 10 years. As the people of our state demand in increasing numbers access to clean, safe drinking water, bold actions to address climate change, and assurances of a fully functioning democracy, I'm very proud to say that Michigan LCV is not only one of the strongest state leagues in the nation, but one of the strongest political players right here in Michigan, stepping up in important ways to address the growing public health and voter protection concerns in this pivotal state at this pivotal time. Now it is my distinct pleasure to turn things back over to Ann DeLisi, who will introduce a very, very special guest.
Thank you so much, Lisa. You're very gracious. I would like to introduce our special guest. For those of you who have attended our gala, our annual gala in the past, you'll know we've been fortunate enough to have Natasha Miller as part of our program. Natasha is a Detroit native, performance poet, LGBTQ activist, film producer, and founder of the Artists in Detroit. Natasha has been a member of 4 national slam poetry teams. She starred in a National Sprite commercial and a Shinola CNN ad, and she is a Woman of the World Poetry Slam 3-time top 5 finalist. Natasha has awed audiences at more than 100 cities and venues, performing in stadiums for as many as 30,000 people. In a non-COVID world, Natasha tours the globe using her words to enlighten and create equality. Please give a warm welcome to Natasha Miller.
All right, thank you, Ann, and thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Courtney. I appreciate every year that you invite me back to do this type of performance. Being a girl from the inner city, I really appreciate all the work that everybody does to ensure that we're included in the conversation that should involve us from the beginning. The poem that I'm gonna do tonight is pretty much so dedicated to a conversation I had with the director of the Detroit Zoo, where kids in my city learn why birds didn't exist in their neighborhoods. So if you like poetry and you out there, before you get to all the other performers, you could drop like claps in the chat and snaps in the chat, or just do things that move you. But more than anything, I hope that you get to be a part of our story. When the teens in my neighborhood were asked if they wanted to participate in a project to determine why they didn't have many birds in their area, they were, as you would expect, uninterested. I mean, who in the inner city cares about how many birds they live near? Who wakes up in the morning wondering why their alarm clock is gunshots instead of the melodic sounds of birds chirping? When the teens in my neighborhood discovered it's not a question of many, it's a question of less. Naturally so, they became interested, because you can only care about something you don't have when you first know that you don't have it. And who gonna tell them that they don't have many birds because they don't have enough trees. Who gonna tell them it's multiple reasons we can't breathe, from the chokehold by the racist cops all the way back to the missing trees? And ain't that just how it is for us to not know who to vote for or exactly where to vote? And ain't ignorance sometimes unintentional and bliss? You cannot know you need something to save your life, and it's your enemy who has to tell you what it is. You could be standing in the middle of the storm watching your family be torn apart. Meanwhile, a few miles up in the suburbs, they got sandbags, boards for windows, and even safe spaces for their art. But who gonna tell them that when our cities turn dark and into a playground full of ghosts, we stay, climb the poles, turn the lights back on ourselves, and make so much noise the rest of the world has to come back to follow us? See, now we know the difference in the flood. They get to watch the hurricane from their hotel rooms while the water carries away all that we love. See, who gonna tell them that we now know, whether it be to fly north to escape the fires or save the bees, we know how to save our own people, standing up and not on our knees to teach indigenous youth about their roots and their tribal roots. Who gonna tell them we ain't hiding no more? We in plain sight. We know how to fly. We know how to fly without trees, y'all. Everybody in my neighborhood gonna be all right. Who gonna tell them? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to this program. Thank you, Ann DeLisi. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Courtney. Who gonna tell them? That was my poem.
Natasha, thank you so much. You know, somehow you make us feel in powerful ways across video, ways that you do in person in the last few galas that we've had, and you've been there in person. You just bring it home. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's now my honor to transition from Natasha's powerful words to introduce our first honorees. By now, we all know that Michigan has been grappling with a toxic contaminant in our water known as PFAS, in addition to the toxic contaminant in our water that is lead. PFAS, or per or polyfluoroalkyl substances, are a family of more than 4,700 chemicals that have been used for decades in many products like flame retardants, waterproof materials, cookware, packaging, it's in food packaging, and much, much more. They do not break down in our environment and accumulate over time, which has been why they're called forever chemicals. They've been linked to numerous health impacts, including various cancers like liver and kidney cancer, thyroid issues, reproductive complications, and high cholesterol. In Michigan, there are well over 100 sites contaminated with these toxic chemicals. Those are sites that we know of. I would guess, educated guess is that there are many, many more. Our honorees, Tony Spaniola and Sandy Winstelt, have been fighting on the front lines, individually and together, to raise awareness of these dangers to our health and to call for action from our leaders. Sandy is a resident of Belmont, which is just outside Grand Rapids, where she is a psychologist by day and an activist by night. And I corrected myself after I thought those words would be appropriate, because Sandy is an activist all the time. It doesn't matter if it's day or it's night. In 2017, she found out that she and her neighbors had been unknowingly drinking water that had been contaminated by tannery waste from a dump site near her home, a site that's owned and operated by Wolverine Worldwide, an international shoe company. Following this discovery, Sandy had her blood tested and found that her blood contained 750 times the national average for PFAS. Think about that, 750 times the national average. That was in 2017. A year prior, in 2016, Sandy lost her beloved husband, Joel, to liver cancer. Instead of hunkering down in astonishment and in grief, Sandy did quite the opposite. She began asking questions, making phone calls, pushing doors open to better understand the situation. She began advocating for protections against PFAS and justice for those who'd been impacted. Over the past many years, Sandy has testified before Congress, shared her stories with local, state, and national media, and continued in a determined fashion to put pressure on our leaders. Sandy serves on numerous boards and commissions, including the Citizens Advisory Work Group, and just this year she helped launch the Great Lakes PFAS Action Network, a new organization formed to bring impacted communities together across not only the state of Michigan, but across the region, and call for bold action by our state and federal elected leaders. Our other honoree tonight is Tony Spaniola. Tony is an attorney with a practice in Oakland County and a home in Oscoda. Oscoda's claim to fame in this story is that it is the first place in Michigan to discover PFAS contamination. Home to the former Wordsmith Air Force Base, Oscoda is contaminated from top to bottom due to PFAS containing firefighting foam, which was used for years and years in training exercises. The legacy of this contamination leaves beautiful Van Etten Lake and the surrounding area heavily polluted, resulting in a do not eat the fish and do not eat the deer advisory and major health concerns. Upon discovering the contamination, Tony worked with residents of Oscoda to form an organization that's called NOW, Need Our Water, Oscoda, a community organization with a mission of cleaning up the contamination in Oscoda and holding the US Air Force accountable for the damage it has caused. Through this work, all of which has been voluntary, as he juggles his law practice and his family obligations, Tony has been recognized at the state and national level as an expert on PFAS. He's become part of a national PFAS alliance made up of strong, determined voices in Massachusetts and Maine and many other locations where the Department of Defense has contaminated the land and the water and people's lives. He is frequently called upon by state and federal regulators for expert input and has served as a steadfast voice to hold government accountable. For many in the media, like Mlcv's Garrett Ellison or the Detroit Free Press's Keith Matheny, Tony is the go-to person for comments on this family of toxins that only seem to be impacting more people and more communities with every passing day. Alongside Sandy, Tony helped launch the Great Lakes PFAS Action Network and serves as co-chair. Tony and Sandy didn't plan on becoming leading activists on water contamination issues. They did it by necessity. They decided they were needed to step up and make a difference so that other people don't have to go through what they and their communities have had to face. From a very personal standpoint, I've had the great privilege of working closely with both Tony and Sandy for many years. They are inspiring examples of what it means to dedicate your life to helping others. Their commitment, their tenacity, and passion shine through every single day. And in a world where everybody seems to be reaching for recognition and trying to find ways to divide communities rather than unite them, Tony and Sandy approach all that they do with deep humility and compassion, knowing that the poisoning of our water knows no boundaries, not economic, not racial, not party, not geography. We all need clean and safe and affordable water. And this amazing duo works every single day to hold polluters accountable, from large corporations like Wolverine Worldwide to the United States Air Force. No one is more deserving of our 2021 Equity and Environment Awards than Sandy Winstelt and Tony Spaniola. So before I turn this virtual podium over to the two of them, I'd like to play a short tribute video that our communications team put together.
I just want to congratulate Tony and Sandy on this very special recognition. Your commitment to addressing PFAS contamination has resulted in real change.
They've shared their personal stories and turned their misfortunes into activism that has created lasting change in Michigan and our nation.
Tony will stop at nothing to hold the Defense Department accountable for their pollution cleanup. He has been a tremendous advocate, not only for the people of Oscoda, but for all who face PFAS chemical contamination.
And in Tony, I found a person that I really deeply respect for his concern for others. So Tony, thank you so much for what you've done for Michigan, for this nation, for your neighbors, for the people in Oscoda. And thank you especially for being my friend.
He has become our leader and a model of action. His skill for strategizing is mystifying. As an accidental activist, I felt weak at times, unsure if I could keep up the good fight. Tony was there, understanding, yet assuring me our fight is important and our group does matter and we do make a difference.
And Sandy, who is a homeowner across the street from where Worldwide Wolverine Worldwide dumped its tannery waste, has had to deal with the impacts on her and her family. Remarkably, Sandy used those experiences to fuel a personal mission to combat PFAS chemical contamination and prevent other families from having to endure the same heartbreak.
Sandy is really one of the most amazing people I've ever met. She's super dedicated to what she does. She cares. She likes to get people involved, and she'll roll with the punches, and she'll do it with a smile on her face. She has this hilarious attitude, and she's super funny, and we are just so lucky to work with her, and I'm personally lucky to have gotten to be able to know her and help tell her story.
Tony, your advocacy has been instrumental in holding the Air Force accountable and fighting for the Oscoda community. And Sandy, your bravery in sharing your story and your courageous leadership has been also instrumental in highlighting the dangers of these chemicals and the need for immediate action.
When it comes to the fight against harmful PFAS chemicals, Tony and Sandy are a force to be reckoned with.
We will continue to follow you into the fire, and someday that fire will be put out with no PFAS products.
And I am proud to be in the trenches fighting with you to make things better. The people of Michigan are healthier and stronger because of you. So thank you and congratulations.
Tony and Sandy, thank you for all you do. We are proud to honor you tonight, and I'm going to turn things over to you. Tony, yeah, you have the virtual podium first.
Lisa, thank you. Thank you very much. That was a moving video, and thanks to your staff for putting that together. It's really amazing to see so many good friends saying so many wonderful things. This is a tremendous honor. MLCV has been a leader in the PFAS fight and has been with us on the front lines, in the trenches, and has worked steadfastly to help raise up the voices and concerns of impacted people like my friends and neighbors in Oscoda throughout our state. Lisa has been an incredible ally, a trusted counselor, and a valued friend through many, many trials and tribulations. And I can pretty much say the same things about each of the other members of the MLCV team. You guys are amazing. You're fabulous to work with, and thank you all, not just for this award tonight, but for everything that you do every day. It is just an incredible honor to work with you. To the other recipients here tonight, I say congratulations and thanks to you as well. My friend Sandy, of course, President Gravel, Assistant Secretary Wheeler, my family's longtime friend, Secretary Benson. You each inspire us all with your courage, your wisdom, and your determination. And in this fight, we need inspiration all the time because it's not an easy one. 5 years ago, I received a notice from the health department warning not to drink the water at my family's home in Oscoda due to PFAS. Within a matter of months, we learned that the Oscoda community faced a massive PFAS problem that had been swept under the rug for years, and for which little had been done and little was being planned. At the time, a local official told me there was no way we could organize the community as there was simply too much apathy. As we sit here tonight, Need Our Water, or NOW, the Community Action Group in Oscoda, is one of the most effective PFAS community organizations in the United States. And it all happened because a group of dedicated people came together and said, we've got to do something. We knew we couldn't do it alone. So we reached out to other organizations like the Anglers of the Ensemble, one of the sponsors here tonight, MLCV, the Wolf Pack, another sponsor here tonight, the National Wildlife Federation. I could go on and on. But we reached out also to other communities. We reached out to the media from our little tiny outpost in Oscoda, and we reached out to political candidates and elected officials around the state. If you ask Governor Gretchen Whitmer, she will tell you that she first learned about PFAS as a candidate from NOW in Oscoda. If you ask Congressman Dan Kildee, who was on the video just a few minutes ago, he'll tell you that the bipartisan Congressional PFAS Task Force came from a brainstorming session with NOW in Oscoda. Amazing things have happened. If you talk to community leaders on the ground in places like Detroit, Flint, Ann Arbor, and Kent County, they'll tell you that NOW is a trusted ally, and NOW will tell you that they're trusted allies as well. It's on that model that Sandy and I teamed up with other community leaders, with MLCV, the Ecology Center, the National Wildlife Federation, to form the Great Lakes PFAS Action Network. We are driven by impacted people and impacted communities, and that's very, very important because we usually don't have much to say in what's going on unless we step up and get support. In our first year of work, we've been successful in encouraging Governor Gretchen Whitmer to issue her executive directive, which was signed in Oscoda just a couple weeks ago, banning state agencies from purchasing most PFAS products. We've developed a PFAS policy agenda, and as part of our initial outreach, sponsored a 3-state screening of the PFAS film documentary that's near and dear to my heart, No Defense. We've come a long way, but there's much, much more to be done. And we have to continue to build and broaden our network and our resources, keeping in mind that when it comes to clean, affordable water, when it comes to health, the health of our children and our grandchildren, when it comes to the very essence of what it means to live in the Great Lakes state of Michigan, as I think Lisa said earlier, we have so much in common that the sky's the limit with what we can accomplish. Thank you all for supporting MLCV in this great effort. Thank you, MLCV, for all that you do. And thank you again for this honor tonight. And so now I will turn it over to my good friend, Sandy.
Thank you, Tony. And thank you, everyone. I'm a little taken aback by that video. I didn't expect something like that. So I'm very humbled to get this award, but you're not getting it back because it's really cool. And so I'm keeping it. 5 years ago, I mean, my life has been a roller coaster the last 5 years, between the death of my husband and then learning the next year about the water contamination, and then my own battle with cancer last year. But, you know, I kind of have to remind myself that steel is made by pounding it and heating it and pounding it and heating it. And that's what makes it resilient. I've learned 2 things in the last 5 years. I've learned that water is the great equalizer. We all have to have clean, affordable, accessible water. It doesn't matter your zip code. It's like Lisa said, we all have to have clean water. But I also learned that when citizens kind of join arms and link together, that we can make a big change in the world. And I think we have done that, and I think we've started to do that. So I just want to thank Lisa. She has been an incredible mentor to me and assistant and help in teaching me so much about this. The whole staff at League of Conservation Voters, you guys are incredible. I know I drive Nick crazy sometimes, so I appreciate him giving me a little praise there. All of you guys have just been so inspirational, and everybody at this event tonight is just, it kind of recharges my battery and gives me hope for the future. So thank you for this, and thank you for everything.
Tony and Sandy, you are true heroes, and we're so proud to be able to acknowledge your fine work. And I know that our team looks forward to working with you in the days and weeks and months ahead. And I know together we're going to get some more major change in the state of Michigan and in the nation to address this terrible, terrible PFAS contamination. If Tony and Sandy were not enough of an inspiration, I am now incredibly honored to turn to our next honoree, Bay Mills Indian Community President Whitney Gravel. As president and chairperson of the Bay Mills Indian Community, President Gravel has worked tirelessly to shut down Line 5, the 68-year-old damaged and dangerous oil pipeline that runs through the Straits of Mackinac, the heart of our Great Lakes. Under President Gravel's leadership, Bay Mills and their tribal citizens have been a key voice advocating for the shutdown of Line 5, which operates in violation of Bay Mills' treaty-protected rights. Bay Mills has the treaty rights in the Straits going back to 1836 to fish for their subsistence and livelihood. Over the past few years, Bay Mills has initiated a number of legal actions to shut down Line 5 and bring evidence into permitting decisions to illustrate how the Enbridge proposed so-called tunnel project is a dangerous and flawed solution. Their leadership as a tribal nation has been and remains a critically important force in the legal sphere and in the overall advocacy effort as we work together to stop the flow of oil through our majestic Great Lakes. President Gravel speaks about Line 5 regularly with power and eloquence at events and webinars and has been actively involved in high-level negotiations for years with the state and federal government. And her leadership is a proud continuation of Bay Mills' long tradition of fighting for state and federal recognition and meaningful consultation with the tribes. In many ways, this award not only recognizes the important leadership of President Gravel, but the work of the entire Bay Mills Indian community. Bay Mills and many other tribal nations in Michigan and beyond have been pushing to put a spotlight on the risks posed by Line 5, and as well as on the solemn duty and obligation of the state of Michigan and the United States to honor their long-standing treaties with Native American tribes. And it's vital to emphasize that it's not just Line 5 that is the focus of the Bay Mills Indian community's work. Bay Mills is making an impact through their strong push to address COVID, improve mental health and community healing, and enhance and restore watersheds and habitats through volunteer events in the Upper Peninsula. Their work is incredibly important and very, very admirable. Before I turn the stage over to you, President Gravel, I'd like to play a special video that our team put together to honor your work.
Whitney, it has been such an honor to work with you to protect the Great Lakes and shut down Line 5. Your kindness and unwavering leadership are unmatched.
Whitney, above all else, I want to just say thank you. Your commitment to highlighting the dangers of Line 5 has been vital to both protecting the Great Lakes and preserving Michigan's tribal lands.
And a big miigwech thank you to President Gravel and Bay Mills Indian community for all the work you're doing in helping to protect our treaty resources, especially from Enbridge Line 5 in the Straits of Mackinac.
With a year in office, President Gravel has not only expertly guided her own tribe through the challenges posed by the pandemic and other issues, but has become a central figure in Michigan and nationwide in several critical fights to protect tribal rights and the environment.
It's fair to say without your leadership, without your extremely hard work, we would not be where we're at with this Line 5 situation, which is within striking distance of decommissioning it.
A lawyer by training and a leader by nature, President Gravel has brought to each of these battles the ability to distill complex issues, to forge meaningful coalitions, and to develop vigorous plans of action.
President Gravel's poise, her deep knowledge of the subject, her ability to communicate what's at stake, and she always seems to step up to the plate.
Miigwech, Whitney, and miigwech to Bay Mills Indian community.
Whitney, thank you again for all that you do to support our state's precious natural resources and the communities that rely on them.
Thank you, miigwech, and looking forward to being with you every step of the way in this fight.
Thank you, President Gravel, for all that you've already accomplished and for all that we know you still have left to do.
I look forward to the day that we can all celebrate the shutdown of Line 5 and the protection of our Great Lakes together. My whole heart is with you, Whitney, miigwech, and congratulations.
President Gravel, your work to shut down Line 5 and so much more is amazing, as you've heard, as we've acknowledged, and thank you for your leadership. I want to turn this virtual podium over to you.
I just want to say, chi miigwech, everyone. I was not expecting that video either, and it was very touching to see many of the allies that we work with on a daily basis to address these issues. When I think of Line 5, I really think of the resurgence of Indigenous knowledge being placed on a platform that is acknowledged and recognized. Line 5 has gained a lot of attention very recently and as well over the past couple of years. But for many of our tribal citizens, it is dedicated and about our relationship with land and water. As was mentioned earlier, Bay Mills Indian Community is a signatory to the 1836 Treaty of Washington. And in that treaty, it set aside specific rights, the right to fish, the right to hunt, the right to gather. But we know as Indigenous people that when our ancestors signed that treaty, they carried an eagle feather, and they knew that when they signed that treaty, they were making an exchange for these rights because they understood that these rights would protect our relationship with those resources. And by protecting that relationship, we would be able to continue forever, for centuries on, for those next 7 generations to survive as a people. And those teachings I carry with me as it relates to Line 5, because if we don't understand our relationship with those resources, with land and water, then we as Indigenous people cannot understand who we are supposed to be, how we're supposed to conduct ourselves. Just as many of the other awardees here tonight are striving for cleaner environments, clean water, combating climate change here in the state of Michigan, that ties back into our ancestral ways too. We have a teaching that says any action that we take today must take into consideration the next 7 generations. It does not mean that the decisions that we take today cannot have an impact for today, but that any decision we do take should have a more sustainable future for those next 7 generations, for your children and your children's children and beyond. And that's what we're all here fighting for today. This work is not done alone, but is instead carried by thousands of tribal citizens in the state of Michigan, our employees, our sister nations, the League of Conservation Voters, and most importantly, by the teachings and the traditions that have been gifted to Bay Mills, to our sisters nations, to our people from our ancestors. As Bay Mills Indian Community has organized around the Line 5 fight, we knew that we had to intervene because the Straits of Mackinac was not only sacred and cultural grounds meant to be protected, it was the creation of the earth that arose from the Straits of Mackinac. But we also understood that just as creation took place there, it was also the heart of North America. It was meant to be respected, treated, and kept as such, according to our teachings. And when we look at those treaty rights, when we look at those cultural teachings that have carried on from our ancestors, it all relates and ties together. We knew that just as what they were protecting back then is that relationship is what we need to continue to protect even now and well into the future. And I know that we're all continuing that good work. I do want to give a really special shout out to our team at Bay Mills Indian Community for doing the hard work every day in this effort, as well as the League of Conservation Voters, Earth Justice, the Native American Rights Fund. Without their commitment, their support, their knowledge, or their dedication, we would not be able to be as involved in this issue as we could be, and we would not be able to amplify treaty rights in the way that we need to. The United States is at a crossroads where we need to decide if we are going
Looks like we may have lost President Gravel. Zoom works until it doesn't. I hope we'll get her back, but I just want to say what an honor to bestow this honor on President Gravel and the Bay Mills Indian Community. They have done just amazing work, and I know that will continue. I'm going to move us forward with our program. I'd now like to introduce our final honorees for tonight's event. For so many of us, the role of Secretary of State has been more directly associated with driver's licenses, license plates, than anything else. And for many, that's still very much the case. But the election of our 45th president created an awareness of how important our elections infrastructure really is and how precarious our democracy, leading voters, many voters who had never thought about this before, to think much more fully about the role of secretaries of state all over this nation. We certainly learned how important this role is in 2020, when the former president promoted his big lie, threatening our democracy in ways that we've never seen before. Secretary of State Benson, Assistant Secretary of State Wheeler, and their team took these threats head on, administering an exceptional election process, one of the safest and most secure in our state's history. They navigated their way through the bombardment of lies and fanaticism, all established to discredit our election system and the outcome. Throughout, Secretary Benson and Assistant Secretary Wheeler stayed true to their goal: make our elections here in Michigan as secure and as accessible as possible, and they succeeded. We saw record turnout in 2020, especially from absentee voters. They administered an election during an unprecedented global pandemic, working to expand options to voting so as many people as possible could vote safely, participating in the electoral process and making their voices heard. This included making sure that local clerks were extensively supported at a time when staffing the polls was enormously challenging due to COVID. Michigan LCV Education Fund, specifically our Democracy for All team, proudly partnered with the Democracy MVP poll worker recruitment program that Secretary Benson and Assistant Secretary Wheeler's team launched last year, and very importantly, continue to run. Their determination to uphold justice was unwavering throughout 2020. They appeared repeatedly on local, state, and national news, using every invitation as a bully pulpit for the security of our elections, dispelling lies and always promoting the truth. Secretary Benson and Assistant Secretary Wheeler's leadership through these truly unprecedented and tough times has been outstanding. I believe I speak for all who have joined us here tonight when I say, thank you so much for all that you do and you continue to do to uphold and protect our democracy. Before I turn the virtual podium over to our next guests and our next honorees, we have a short video tribute.
We will, when we work together, ensure that our democracy survives.
You don't have power if you don't use it. Voting is your power.
5.5 million citizens voted in 2020's November election, and of those, 3.3 million voted absentee.
You've got several options. You can actually vote by mail. We've got Michigan's new voting rights, which includes a no excuse absentee voting, same day voter registration, and automatic voter registration.
There is no candidate, no campaign, no political party who will stand in the way of our commitment to ensure that every valid vote in Michigan will be counted and that only valid votes in Michigan will be counted.
We expect 5.5 million people will cast a ballot on the way to Election Day.
We're on track to see more Michigan citizens vote in this election than ever before, and that is a beautiful thing for our democracy.
This year's election was, quote, the most secure in history.
And so the work, my friends, continues. The work will continue through 2022, through 2024. And really what we learned in 2020 was that it takes good people on both sides of the aisle, acting with integrity, voting, participating, and then protecting those results to ensure that democracy prevails.
Thank you so much for your leadership and for standing up for our democracy, Assistant Secretary of State Wheeler, and it's our pleasure to invite you to share a few words with our audience today. The floor is yours.
Very special thank you to you, Lisa Wozniak. First of all, let me say how deeply honored I am to be a part of such an important awards moment. It is truly my plum-pleasing pleasure. As you will see and hear from Secretary Benson, it is an awesome opportunity for a brother like me from Linwood down here in Detroit to work alongside a person like her. Her passion is unparalleled. So what you will likely hear from Secretary Benson is that even before the pandemic, we understood the work that was ahead of us. We knew, or we thought we knew at the time, the challenges in implementing these new rights, and we made a plan to implement them as inclusively as possible. Removing barriers to participation in our democracy is not a task we take lightly. So when the pandemic struck, we were even more acutely aware of how critical it was that we ensure every voter, no matter what their zip code was, no matter their age, no matter their race, no matter their native language or their political affiliation, understood the full spectrum of their rights and had the information they needed to make a decision about how to vote in the way that they felt most safe and comfortable. This was a formidable task, but it was worth the work we were doing. We always knew how critical it was to continue spreading the word, meeting people where they were, and providing as much information as possible to allow individual voters to make informed choices about their right to vote. That was buoyed. That is what buoyed us during an incredibly difficult and at times very, very painful year. And while we were grateful to see those efforts pay off in the form of last year's incredible turnout, the fight is indeed not over. We are now in the midst of an attack on the very rights and policies that made last year's success possible. We have seen time and time again over the last century efforts to sideline, to marginalize, and to outright silence voices in this nation by limiting their access to the ballot box. Those pushing such efforts do so precisely because there's power in casting your ballot. So there is a national partisan coordinated effort now to again silence voters in this country. Voters they disagree with, or voters they are afraid will hold them accountable for the decisions they've made over the last year and a half. We are not going to let them. We know what needs to be done. We have the facts, we have the truth, and we know the will of the people. Dr. King taught us that no lie can live forever. He also taught us that the truth pressed against the earth will rise again. Thank you for recognizing our ongoing efforts to ensure that Michigan is and will remain safe and a secure state for every Michigan voter. It is my honor to serve alongside this awesome fighter for democracy and equity, Jocelyn Benson. Thank you, Michigan LCV.
So it is my distinct pleasure. Thank you, Assistant Secretary Wheeler. Thank you so much for your comments and for your amazing work. And it is my pleasure to turn it over to Secretary of State Benson, who literally wrote the book on Secretaries of State. And so turning the virtual podium over to you.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you all for this honor and for your work. And as you heard from Assistant Secretary of State Wheeler, we believe strongly that democracy is a team sport, and that as the threats to democracy and to our vote and our power escalate, so must our work and our determination to protect it. Long before the start of the pandemic, Assistant Secretary of State Wheeler and I knew the excitement and challenges of 2020 was going to be undeniable for Michigan and for our voters. And we also knew, as you all know, and I'm grateful for you recognizing, that at the heart of every issue we fight for, whether it's freedom of choice, whether it's equality and equity, whether it's good schools and good healthcare, quality jobs, or our environment, that everything gets back to whether we have access to the ballot box. And that's what I've devoted my life, and what Assistant Secretary of State Wheeler has devoted his to protecting, because it protects and is preservative of all other issues that we work on and fight for. And when I took office in 2019, I took office with the support of the passage of the Promote the Vote amendment that over 60% of voters supported in 2018, mandating the expansion of voting rights and making our democracy more accessible to every citizen. And so having that mandate and that wind at our back, we worked to implement it, the intricacies of the proposal, the freedoms it brought with it, and to make sure we were using all the best practices that every other state has demonstrated, and really educating our voters as well about how to take advantage of their options to vote and their new opportunities to become registered and engaged citizens. And while all of that we knew was going to be challenging, we knew also that by building a team that we did within our department, as well as working in partnership with LCV and so many other nonpartisan and committed organizations, that we would be able to meet the moment. And of course, we were all eager and excited to see the evidence in really the first few elections in 2019 of increased opportunity and access to the vote. And then when the pandemic came to Michigan, we were ready to adjust and adapt and really ensure that at a time when many other states struggled, Michigan could guarantee to its citizens they would have options to vote, their vote would be safe and secure, and that we'd do everything possible and use every tool at our disposal to protect their vote and educate all citizens about how to have faith that their democracy worked for them. That was, of course, our goal. And even so, we face unprecedented challenges, ever-changing circumstances, and a real unprecedented effort to block the will of the voters after the closure of the polls in November. That in many ways was something that we'd never encountered as a state and a country before, but certainly has set the tone for the future and what we can expect those who are against democracy to elevate and focus on in the future. So while our efforts in 2020 paid off, all of our work together beginning in 2018 and perhaps long before to ensure we had a democracy that worked for everyone enabled us to hold our most safe, secure, and accessible election in state history in November 2020, when a record-breaking number of citizens participated. More people than ever decided to vote from home or absentee. And at the end of the day, despite an unprecedented, targeted effort to overturn our elections, to sow seeds of doubt about its veracity and accuracy, we survived. Our democracy prevailed, and it was in many cases because of the work we all did together. So we're incredibly proud of our work in 2020 and the accomplishment of protecting democracy in one of its greatest, at times of its greatest peril, and even more proud of the voters who stood undeterred, focused on speaking the truth and ensuring, even amidst unprecedented levels of misinformation and attacks on our democracy and our citizens' freedom to vote, that so many citizens committed themselves to protecting our democracy, to making the right decisions, to volunteering to be election workers, poll workers, and to simply share the truth about the accuracy of our vote, our elections, and the results. So thank you so much for recognizing these efforts tonight. Truly, they were critical in setting the stage for future attacks. And as I just came from another conversation where that was very much focused on how will we ensure that democracy prevails in the future against these escalating attacks. And I said simply, I know that we'll prevail because we have in the past, because history is on our side, because the law is on our side, and because the majority of people in Michigan and throughout our country are on our side. They're on the side of democracy. So if we harness all of those realities, as well as the truth and the facts that are squarely on our side, we can ensure that our democracy will continue to prevail. But it will take all of us working together, perhaps harder than we've ever worked before in the years ahead, to protect our democracy from ongoing attacks and ensure that it continues to be intact for generations to come. So thank you for recognizing our work to do, but roll up your sleeves because we've got a lot more work ahead. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you towards further success. Thanks.
Secretary of State Benson, Assistant Secretary of State Wheeler, we are truly honored to honor you. We are so grateful for your leadership. And please know that our Democracy for All team is working hard now and will continue to work hard side by side with you and your team in the days, weeks, and months ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as the icing on the cake for tonight's program, I'm extremely excited to introduce a very special friend to the organization, the mayor-elect of Dearborn, Abdullah Hammoud. Abdullah goes way back, if you will, with Michigan LCV. He is a former Michigan LCV board member. In fact, he was proudly the youngest board member in our organization's history and still remains the youngest board member ever to serve the organization. During following a few years of excellent service with us and on our board, Abdullah ran for the state house and was elected to represent Michigan's 15th State House District in 2016. While in the legislature, Representative Hammoud has been a steadfast advocate for protecting our air and our water, and that's not a surprise. He arrived in Lansing with a background in public health, and having lived in a community and grown up in a community filled with major polluters like AK Steel. From day one in office, Abdullah has not been afraid to go toe-to-toe with large corporations in order to hold them accountable and protect the health of his constituents. During his tenure in the legislature, Abdullah has been an incredibly strong voice for state level action on climate change. And when the impacts of the climate crisis hit his community over this last summer, Abdullah literally took time off of the campaign trail and rolled up his sleeves, amassed a huge number of volunteers, and went door to door to make sure that residents throughout the city were safe, clearing out damaged and molding furniture, family heirlooms, and even drywall due to the massive flooding that swept through Dearborn. Abdullah is a proud U of M grad, earning not only his Bachelor of Science, but a master's degree in epidemiology and a master's of business administration from the Maize and Blue. The Michigan LCV team worked very hard on Abdullah's election to the state house, and we were thrilled to have him in Lansing for the last 5 years serving the people of Michigan. We were also extremely delighted when he announced his candidacy for mayor and played a very big role in both his primary and general election races this year. Abdullah, it's a pleasure and a privilege to have you with us tonight. I think you may be joining from your car, I'm not sure, but please welcome Dearborn Mayor-elect Abdullah Hammoud.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm not in my car, I'm in office, as although I'm speaking at I'm also present at an in-person gala providing a speech after this. What Lisa failed to mention was, in addition to being a board member for LCV, it was also LCV that sparked my initial run for State House. It was actually a conspicuous email that Lisa sent me saying, send me your resume, which ultimately led to several conversations down the line, ultimately pushing, encouraging me, and providing me with a
Well, I had a feeling that was going to happen. Maybe he will be back. Oh, is he there? Abdullah, are you there?
Hello? Yes.
It's hard. We're having a
Hello?
hard time hearing you. There you are. There you
Is
are.
this
Yeah.
okay? There we go. All right, so I'm gonna start over because I'm assuming you heard nothing.
I heard a little bit. Go for
Okay.
it.
So, first and foremost, again, thank you so much to LCV for having me. If you see the Bellagio written on the wall, I am not in Las Vegas. There is a banquet center in Dearborn Heights called the Bellagio Banquet Center. So forgive me, I'm just balancing an in-person gala with a virtual gala. What Lisa failed to mention, in addition to being a proud former board member of LCV, it was actually an email that Lisa Wozniak first sent requesting my resume with no context, saying attach a resume, we'd love to see it. And that resume would ultimately circulate, which led to my initial run for office, providing me with the support and the understanding for what it took to serve my hometown, the city of Dearborn. And so I'm thankful that LCV has been there from the very beginning and really helping spawn this passion and this love for public service and really creating the opportunity and the platform for me to run for office and seek opportunities to give back. And if we look at our partnership over the years, more than introducing legislation in Lansing and holding polluters accountable, we also had several wins at a local level. It was working alongside current board member Salah Ali and several of LCV's board members and other environmental attorneys and drafting the city of Dearborn's first ever environmental ordinance, which was passed and put into law. A fugitive dust ordinance which held corporate polluters accountable. And just recently, we just stripped away someone's certificate of occupation because they weren't able to meet the standards of our fugitive dust ordinance, improving the air quality within the south end of the city of Dearborn, which holds an asthma rate that is 3 to 4 times that in the state of Michigan. And as we look at the horizon of what needs to be done, I think of the catastrophic events that happened this summer with the flooding. and working alongside many volunteers and rolling up our sleeves, throwing on our work boots and clearing out not only the flood water and the sewage water in people's basements, but also the debris and furniture and frankly, people's livelihoods, which was set on the curbside in order for a dump truck to come and pick it up. And it's unacceptable. And it's because cities like Dearborn, it's because states like Michigan and states all across the country have not yet made the necessary investments needed to adjust to the climate crisis, which is real. These once in a lifetime historic rain events have now happened 3 times in the last 7 years in the city of Dearborn. And so I look forward to, utilizing the resources that are now available through the Build Back, through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Deal, through the American Rescue Plan Act, proposals, and potentially, hopefully, God willing, crossing our fingers, through the Build Back Better plan. Proposals that LCV was integral in advocating for, and more than just helping secure these dollars and ensuring that we at the local level have an opportunity to make investments to improve the quality of life, because we at the local level know our communities and our neighborhoods better than other individuals. So LCV was not only integral in securing those dollars, but also in advocating now that we've received those dollars and providing and how best to use those dollars. Because it's one thing to have the money sitting in your bank account. It's another to have access to the engineers, to the environmental sustainability experts, to the experts in their respective fields, and how best to implement and utilize these dollars in order for us to ensure that catastrophic flooding events that happened this summer in Dearborn and beyond never happen again for families today, as well as for generations to come. And so what I'm hopeful for is I'm hopeful that with this historic level of funding, we will have an opportunity to shape not only a new era for the city of Dearborn, but also a new era for Southeast Michigan, for the state of Michigan, and for the United States of America. And it's largely due and possible, in my belief, because of the great grassroots efforts of organizations such as LCV, which help elevate candidates such as myself, who are hometown candidates. They help knock the doors, they help make the calls, and they help spread the good word on good candidates trying to give back to the community that provided us and provided myself really with everything. And so I thank you for your support. I thank you for your partnership. And I look forward for the many years to come in which we'll come together and really think about what we can do to improve the health, the overall public health, including the environmental health of our community here in Dearborn and beyond. And so thank you so much for having me. And I wish you all a great night.
Thank you, Abdullah Hamoud, Mayor-elect to Dearborn. And I'm going to turn things over to my awesome friend and President of the board, George Davis.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And thank you so much, Abdullah. Congratulations on a wonderful election. We miss you here at MLCV, but now that we know that you're in Dearborn, ready to do good things, we're glad to be partners in the progress over in Dearborn. As Lisa said, I'm George Davis. I'm the current president of the board of directors for MLCV. And I'd just like to say it's been an amazing night, lineup of speakers and honorees. If I were in the room, I'd say let's all give them a round of applause. But you can applaud it with your hands and your hearts as we watch tonight. I have to admit, when we attend these kind of events, I get so motivated and I feel inspired because I know that there are things that we can do to move our world forward, and we've got the people around them and the talent to make it happen. These advocates tonight have significant and deep impacts on all the lives in the great state of Michigan. We're glad to see them here with us tonight. We at MLCV believe that the collective action has the power to alter the future. We're so proud to partner with people like Tony and Sandy to clean up the water, with President Gravel to shut down Line 5, and with Secretary of State Benson and Assistant Secretary of State Wheeler to defend our democracy. The collaborative work here will make our state greater in the future, and that is truly, truly amazing. And each of you are all a part of that. With your ongoing support, none of this would be possible. We're so grateful to see how generous you are with us this year and in the years to come. The proceeds from this event and your donations to MLCV will help fund our amazing programs, drive our staff, who are also amazing, and have solidified our position as one of the top political players in the state. And that's because of you. The true work of MLCV is doing and having the huge impact that is vital to the future of health, to our natural resources, and the protections of our state for all those things that we cherish. We've got a huge year ahead of us here in 2022. So I'd like to ask, if you've heard these stories, you've seen this work, if you felt this impact, we are sending you a link in our chat for donations. Please give whatever you can to keep this momentum going so that we can have a strong 2022. We're about 10 grand short of tonight's goal of $100,000. So let's see if we can make up the difference. We'd love to get there tonight because tomorrow begins the work. Let's dig in deep for the environment. I thank you for your support, for your contributions, and your passions. And now, before we close out tonight's program, young people play a great and integral role in our organization. And we've built multiple programs that give youth the opportunity to learn about organizing and the issues that we work on, and good options too for their careers in the future. They are the ones who in the future will lead the fight and will protect our air, land, and water tomorrow. And as we look to tackle a changing climate, they have a big role to play. Along these lines, I'd like to play one final video that the team has pulled together and one more message of our collective hope.
Working for Michigan LCV makes me proud because I finally get to work for an organization that has values that align with my own values.
There's an endless amount of opportunities to take action, and there are genuine ways to make long-lasting, impactful differences in your own community.
This work is important to me because Michigan is home to some of the most beautiful natural spaces in the country, and I want them to remain the same for generations to come.
This work is important to me because I want to make sure that the earth is livable for the rest of my lifetime,